right, week 12 of this journey saw us reading chapter 12 of Showtime and chapter 7 of Our Musicals Ourselves. It was really neat to see the connections between our readings and work in development of modern theater, looking at the off-Broadway and more specifically the off-Broadway in that course, along with this, and seeing that though it's no surprise, Broadway and the fight for not fight, but the search for making money and commercialism, they took it where they could find it, and when they found shows that were successful off Broadway, they tried to incorporate them on Broadway to make more money off of it, and to I wish I could say it was just about branching out and bringing more art to more people, but we know that that wasn't the case. I enjoyed the fact that even though for those on Broadway it was about commercialism and making money, it still allowed these experimental pieces to get to a larger audience. I also really liked the deeper look at The Man La Mancha, which is one of my favorite shows, one that I want to direct at some point in my life. But reading about how it was originally staged and seeing the diagram drawn, I wish I could have seen that. And it makes me want to try to perform it as more of like a black box performance instead of a full proscenium. I think that could be really fantastic. And the other thing I found really interesting about Showtime in chapter 12 was that there were a lot of small musicals that were created in this movement from the off-Broadway side just because they had to fit in this space. So we have shows like You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, just because the space was so small that you had to have a small cast, and then budget kept it small, and so you have these creative, innovative, neat shows that came out of the needs of the space, not necessarily just what the playwrights and the lyricists and everything, what all the production team, like the Fantastics, they envisioned it as this big, over-the-top extravaganza event, and then reality made it become this very small, intimate piece, which is just so cool. It's really cool that idea of breaking away from what was expected or normal was able to create some really great shows. For Our Musicals Ourselves, I focused on The Man La Mancha again because, again, it was so neat. The quest has always spoken to me on a very deep level, and to understand that it was kind of combating and being inspired almost by the anti-war movements, and that idea that peace and hope can be a really good thing. I also looked at Cabaret, 1776, and Annie, as these are the shows that throughout the discussion of the chapter, these are the ones that I related to the most, and partially because they're the shows I knew, but that's just where that stuck in my head. Cabaret being about inequality within societal groups and racism, and also showing that people are very slow to change oftentimes. The fact that Sally is just like, how does this affect me? Why should I worry about this? And as a viewer, as an audience, we're going, but you should. And I wonder, because I've never taken it into having more meaning than being a view of the historical time of Germany and World War II. I did not make the connection that it was also speaking about America and civil rights and things like that. So I wonder how many people at the time were able to make that connection. And then 1776 is like, they took Man of La Mancha and they took Cabaret, and they're like, here are these rebels, these people who are literally starting a rebellion, who are traitors until they win, because you're only a traitor if you lose. But they're shown as these very real people. They're taking two-dimensional historical figures and they were turned into three-dimensional real living beings, a lot like how Hamilton has redone that today. It's just neat that the history came to life on stage, but they're being presented in this calm and everyday manner, which they were. But for that to also be a statement, used as statement. And then Annie being much like Man of La Mancha, where even though we have all this darkness in the world, living in optimism is key in the face of other things. So that spunk, that spirit, that drive to push forward. Anyway, those were my takeaways. So